and welcome to the Record Club, brought to you by Record Store Day, the official charts, and National Album Day, and proudly in association with Bowes and Wilkins. My name is Jess Iszatt. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited to say that our guests this evening are Circa Waves to talk all about their brilliant new album, Never Going Under. If you are new to the Record Club, we're going to be spending the next half an hour or so talking to Circa Waves all about the brilliant new record, and then we're going to be putting forward some of your questions for them to answer. So if there is anything about the record, whether it's a certain song, perhaps the artwork, or a particular lyric that you've enjoyed, make sure to drop us a question in the comments section below, and I'm going to be getting to them into the second half of our chat. And on top of that, one lucky person who sends in a question today is going to be randomly selected to win a pair of Bowes and Wilkins PX7 over-ear noise-cancelling headphones. Been listening to the new album in mine, and they sound great, so don't miss out. Get your questions to us. And remember, if you haven't already got yourself a copy, go get one from your local record store once our chat with Circa Waves is over. So let's get straight into this week's Record Club and say a big hello
to Joe from Circa Waves.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Congrats on the fifth album. How's it all feeling for you right now?
It feels really good. When you're sat on a thing for a long period of time, it's hard to know exactly how it's gonna go, and you also get like a bit sort of. It's just really nice to see the reaction, because like I think we were in love with a lot of these songs, and we've been sitting on them because we, when the pandemic started, went straight into writing. So it's been a while since the some of the songs have been like in the camp, so it's nice to get them out in the public.
Yeah, it's interesting because we were just having a little bit of a chat before we went live, talking about releasing in January. It feels like a good time to release albums. I think people are like at home, they're listening to music now, they're kind of getting excited for the year ahead.
Yeah, I also think not a lot of good stuff tends to happen in January, right? So it's nice to, at least from the releasing side of things, it's like, what is it? Normally I don't go anywhere, get healthy, dry January maybe, but this is much better. Putting out a record, it's a much more, it feels like a birth of a new year.
Yeah, for sure. And if you've got a birthday in January, maybe it's a good birthday present to get a record.
See, you're very good at selling the record. I appreciate that.
Am I part of the team now?
I think you should be.
Okay, so each week on the Record Club, to officially kick things off, we have a question from one of our many amazing independent record stores across the UK. And this week's question comes from the Record Cafe in Bradford. And they're asking, it's very easy to get stuck listening to the music of your youth, but there's been a constant stream of great new bands and artists since your debut in 2015. Do you listen to new music? And if so, who's caught your ear?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I always try and keep my finger on the pulse of new music, but I do go into like periods where I sort of just get stuck. I think people do, like especially like there's something comforting about listening to those older like things that you used to listen to. And I love listening to like records that I haven't listened to in like 10, 15 years to see if I still have that like same feeling about it. But yeah, no, there's a couple of like new artists that we like. We're taking on Courting and Cassia on the road with us. They're both a couple of great new bands. There's a girl called Lizzie Esau that I really like. But I think I need to be better at it as well, to be honest. And I think record stores are a good place to find it for sure.
Yes, yeah, that is so true. You can kind of stumble across something new. Is that your favorite way of finding new music, or how do you generally?
Well, I think there was a period of time when I sort of gave myself into the algorithm of the streaming sites, and then I sort of like realized that I don't like giving autonomy to a machine, especially like in the way that I discover music. So, I can't tell you how many times I've gone into like a record store and like had to Shazam something. Or I feel like vintage clothes shops as well always have like there's always some like cool teenager who works there who's like got some music on that you've not heard, and I think that's a good place to find things as well.
Go around a vintage shop and trying to find new music. So I'm just here for the soundtrack.
Yeah, there's no trousers here for me, but the music's great.
I actually remember there was a vintage shop that I went into and they were playing 100% Mariah Carey, and not new music, but it definitely kept me in there. So
that's amazing. Well,
yeah. Obviously, huge love to the Record Cafe in Bradford. Thank you for your question. Have you been there actually, Joe?
I've never been to Bradford.
No, I don't. I think I've been to Bradford maybe once.
I feel like maybe I think the image of the name Record Cafe suggests to me that it's like a good place to go hang out.
It kind of sounds like they're affiliated with us as well.
Yeah, maybe you should do a tie-in. Maybe you should do a live episode.
Hey, look, when we do a tour, we'll go there. Maybe
Okay.
both of us can go there. We'll bring Circa Waves there.
I'll come on the tour. I think you've
Amazing.
formally invited me for the tour.
All right, let's talk about the album. So, Never Going Under, title track, it's the opening track as well. Why was this picked as the track for the album? Did you have a big discussion about it? Was there other names discussed as well?
Oh, you better believe there was an email thread. I think we'd kind of forgotten a little bit what it was like to go through the process of making a record. I mean, like not the writing the music and the recording the music. Like I think that kind of felt good, but I think all those little things that people probably don't think about so much about being a band, which is like, I think it took us so long to get the artwork and it took us so long to get the title. And I think sometimes you have to go through the process of like recording the record and having the finished product before you figure out what the album's about and like you start to go, oh, there's themes here and the way that it sounds makes me feel this way. And I think Never Going Under was good because it was a song on the album, but also there's sort of like a theme of resilience in the face of adversity that sort of comes through, which is kind of like, I guess, something that we've all kind of experienced in the last couple of years. So it felt apt. And so, yeah, and also the great thing about that song as well is uh, it's kind of, it sort of hits you straight away. It sort of like announces the start of the album. You know, kind of like that Lizzo had that opening track on her new album, which is just
Yes.
like, yeah, I feel like Never Going Under is kind of like that for us. It's like, we've been away, we're back, and it's just like hits you straight away. So it kind of like was the perfect title track, really.
I love the way you brought in like Lizzo as the comparison to Circa Waves.
I think that like as like a comeback after a like break record, I think that's such a good way of starting an album. So I'm just gonna have to give her props.
You're going to need to get her on at some point, maybe her and her flute.
Oh, I think yeah. I mean, that would be a dream collaboration, but I don't know. I don't know how you can make that happen. I just manifest it and maybe it will.
Well, it's been said on the record club now, so
Yeah,
hopefully,
it will trickle
Lizzo,
down.
if you're watching. And I know that playing live is obviously huge to Circa Waves, and you mentioned that this was sort of a lockdown baby a little bit.
Yeah, kind of like inevitable. It was inevitably a lockdown baby because there was nothing else for us to do. Like the last album came out and we were doing shows and record stores, and then we had to cut that short because the pandemic started whilst we were on tour. So we had to like cancel the show and just get on a train and go home. So inevitably, it was kind of like we had to spend the pandemic like working on this album, and we were emailing a lot to each other, and it was sort of that was the way that we were writing. But I think it's not necessarily a record 100% about a pandemic. But like I think that if an artist comes out of the last 2 years and makes something and there isn't at least like a subtle reference to it, then I think then they're kidding themselves.
Yeah, that's true. But also, not only that, Kieran was affected because huge life change. He became a father. Did you, how was it as a band? Because I'm guessing that he was sending the music to you and then you guys were listening to it on your own at first. Were they demos? Is that how you got it?
Yeah, I mean he's always because obviously we sort of all moved away. Like from I live in London and Sam lives in London, Colin's in Essex. So Kieran's the only one still in Liverpool. So we've always kind of had that dynamic where once tour finishes, we kind of do separate. And Kieran has always been this like very prolific writer. Like he writes every single day, like a 9 to 5. I've never seen someone write so many songs. It's kind of scary how many songs he can write.
Does he give
Um,
some of them away? Because that seems crazy that he just has them.
Yeah, I mean, he gives. I mean, he keeps the best ones for us.
Yeah.
But no, he does a lot of co-writing, and he writes like he can write in all sorts of styles. So we kind of already had a bit of a dynamic where, a lot of the times we first hear demos, it's after Kieran has written something and sends it through. But I also think that in this album, I think because we knew that we weren't able to get back together, I think that there was more stuff going back the other way. because we knew we wouldn't get into a room to sort of work on things. So
Mm.
the working on it had to happen individually in like in our own rooms. And I think Kieran would sort of go, oh, can you put some like lead guitar on this, or can you like is there a solo that you can throw back? And it was kind of an interesting way of working, but I don't know. It was the other thing as well is like I think because we wanted to play live as well, and we were sat in our rooms. I think a lot of the record definitely suits like a live audience because we were sort of imagining what it would be like to play these songs in a time when we could. And yeah, I think we were kind of like manifesting these big shows. And if you listen to the record, I think you can kind of imagine them in a live scenario. And yeah, can't wait to play them live.
Oh yeah, there's definitely some really anthemic ones. Even which one did I write down? It's like Hold On is like a slower anthem, but it like builds, and I could
Yeah.
just imagine like people singing along, and
Oh.
definitely kept me going through like these dark mornings and dark evenings as well. Has there been a surprising fan favorite since it dropped?
I don't know. I always ask fans this. I mean, I think your ghost is there. I get that though because it's kind of like it's like a bit of an earworm. It's kind of like it's got that sort of like there's a few songs that have that sort of like same sort of catchy beat, and I think yeah, I think that's one of them. Electric City is one of my like favorite sleeper tracks as well. I think that's quite good. That feels like a Brendan Benson song to me. When Kieran wrote that, I was like, something Brendan Benson about it, but
Yeah,
he
yeah.
yeah he never. It's really funny whenever like you get the demos as well, like because we've all got quite different music tastes, or like well, at least we span lots of different things. Like it's funny, like what comes to my mind definitely doesn't like come to the others' minds as well. So yeah, it's quite interesting.
That's nice though, because then you're having differing perspectives as well, and you can kind of see it from different ways.
Yeah, because I think if you hear something that someone else doesn't, then that's a potential avenue that the song can go down that people haven't necessarily thought about. I think I remember the original version of "Carry You Home" was quite different. I think because as more and more demos came forward, then like every time you make a new album, you're trying to find out what the sort of like the key like sonic themes are, and what you want to have a cohesive record. You don't want it all sounding the same, but you want to like sort of take certain production elements and certain like textures and bring them across all the songs. And Carry You Home in particular was one that was like maybe an outlier. It was a great song, but it kind of didn't fully like fit in the world of some of the other demos. So I remember that was one of those ones where we it's one of the first times we actually all like managed to see each other in person. We went up to Liverpool and we worked on that. And the drums kind of like changed, like a couple of like beats, like sort of we pulled references from other songs, and yeah, some of the synths sort of changed the sound a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely like the sonic side is probably the most collaborative part of the record when trying to make it cohesive, I think.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I've written down Carry Home as one of my favorites. I feel like I love one that has a really recognizable opening so that you just know exactly what song
Yeah,
that's going
yeah.
to be, and the melodies in it as well. And do you guys do backing vocals, or have you got someone else doing that?
I do a lot of the backing vocals. I think it's really like I do a lot of backing vocals, and then Kieran's wife, she's like sometimes if there's like a really high one, like
Draft her in.
yeah, well she'll sing all the harmonies on the demos that Kieran sent over, and then when we went to the studio to do it, I kind of like I'll go and do the harmonies and replace what she's done, and then but sometimes like there's a really high one that she's done, and I'm very competitive, and I'm like I'm gonna really push myself to see like how high I can go. I was listening to there's a Living in the Grey, which is the last track on the record. We're getting ready to do it live, so I've been listening to the stems and sort of like relearning my harmonies and guitar parts. And I listened to there's like a falsetto, like super high one in the chorus that I did. If you take it out of context, it sounds so wild. It's like it's almost like screeching like a bench.
Oh, I was going to say not like Mariah with the whistle notes.
Well, I did this at the same time, and then it helped me hit the notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the way that you mentioned getting competitive in terms of high notes. It's quite a funny image. Um, All right, I've got one last question before we get into questions from people at home. I can see that there are a few coming in, so definitely get them in before it's too late. I want to know which one's the most challenging for you as a guitarist to play.
Oh, on the new album.
Mm.
That's a really good question. I don't know. I feel like I'm. It's funny as well. Like when you go in to make a record, right? The demos were there and they were floating around on email for a while, and then we got the call, and it's like, well, we're gonna go in, we're gonna record in like 6 weeks, and so I'm like, I better learn how to play the songs. And I think that I a lot of the songs I sort of like only really became familiar with the guitar parts and taught like for that short period of time we were recording. So if we're not going to play them on the live tour, I don't think I can remember how half of them go. To be honest, I'd have to relearn them. Um, I think that the hardest things for me to do as a guitarist, I can't think of anything on. I don't think there's anything on this album that's particularly difficult. But if I'm doing a backing vocal that's like matching Kieran, it's like the main melody, and then sometimes I have to do a guitar part that completely counterintuitive, and it's that whole like patting your head and rubbing your stomach thing.
It's because
Like
you want to be doing this.
yeah, but trying to sing in one rhythm and play the other thing is like sometimes that's the hardest thing, and it takes me like a long time. But I think on this record,
When you're doing that on tour now, people are going to be watching you, being like, "Oh, is he
I
getting
yeah,
it?"
just the on the first album, the "Stuck in My Teeth" chorus is like a particularly. That was the first time I ever had to sort of do that because I had to play the riff and sing the chorus at the same time, and it's pretty difficult.
That's funny. All right. Okay, let's get into it. Ellie from the National Album Days page says, "Is there a favorite lyric on the album?"
Oh, I don't think there's a specific lyric that stands out to me, but I do. I love "Living in the Grey." Like that. I love the lyrics of that. I think that it's such a nice song. It's a great way to finish the album, and it's kind of got this like emotional weight to it
It's a little
that
bit different to
yeah,
the
and
rest of the sound.
I'm just really like I'm really proud of ourselves for like putting something like that on the record. I think it's like it's a really great place to go, and I think it shows the range that we have as a band. And I also think that like Kieran, like on that song in particular, like I think Kieran's done a really great job with the lyrics, and I think that yeah, I can kind of relate to that. There's a sort of a theme of it, like sometimes we've got a very good job, but sometimes you even if you're successful, like you have moments where like you feel a little bit empty about things, and I think people can relate to that sometimes. I think it's quite a relatable feeling where if something's going well, sometimes you're not able to enjoy it. And I remember that period of time when Kieran felt that way, and I think yeah, it's not. I feel really yeah, it's like a good thing that he wrote about it, and I think it shows the depth of him as a songwriter at the moment.
We also have Dean Huddleston on Circa Waves page asking, "Does the mood of the album reflect the mood of the band at the time of writing?"
Oh, that's a good question. I think so. I find it really hard to remember how I feel about things. I mean, I feel being retrospective about emotions like a difficult place to be. But I think the mood of the album, I think there's quite a range of it, but I think there is an optimism to it overall. Like even though it deals, sometimes with like negative feelings, I think the instrumentation and the textures, I think are overall kind of uplifting, and I think that there's a sort of like positivity to it. And I guess it was written in a time where, you could have chosen to be optimistic or not about something. So I think we as a band, because we were I don't know. I think we got a glimpse of what it was like not to be a band, and I don't think we liked it that much. And I
Yeah.
think that it's kind of given us a new lease of life, and it's kind of as a band, I think we've come taken to coming back like ducks to water. And I think that yeah, I think maybe the record is kind of like when we get back, it's going to be amazing. And I feel like the record does feel a little bit like that.
The music videos as well, you guys just look like you're having the most fun. So I bet you guys are missing like being back together.
Yeah, yeah, it is really nice. Well, I think as well the other things like we've always done that thing because we live away from each other now. So, I mean, like before the pandemic, we were so busy and we were in each other's pockets, and it is always good to have that moment where we just separate, don't talk. So when we come back together, we remember exactly like why we love being in a band.
Yeah. We also have Rob on the official charts page saying, do you feel that rock music is having a bit of a mainstream resurgence at the moment?
Uh, yeah, I think it's definitely coming back strong. I think everything's like obviously peaks and flows, right? I think when we got signed, when we first got picked up, I think that it was starting to come back again, and then I think maybe it sort of dipped a bit, and then now it's on the rise. But I think there's something undeniable about um, like guitar music, just because like there's something about how accessible it is to buy a guitar for under £100. Like
Mm.
look up how to play a song by your favorite band, and it's like I think that's how like everyone in our band like learned how to play music. It was just like we loved seeing other bands who played guitar, and we locked ourselves in our bedrooms and we like learned how to do it. And I think that trends will always change, but I think there's something pure about being able to just like play a song on a guitar and not necessarily like load up your laptop, you know what I mean? I feel like the barrier to entry is much lower with a guitar, so I think it kind of it might go in and out of fashion, but it will never truly die.
No, I agree with that. And I also, without it annoyingly referring back to lockdown again, but I feel like there was a lot of people who were making music on their own in lockdown. And then afterwards, being able to get back together properly as a band and make music sort of in a studio and perform it. I feel like there's definitely something in that as well.
Yeah, I think it is like the ultimate community activity being in a band and playing rock music. It's a good, most people just start bands because they just want to hang out with their mates. You know what I
That is
mean?
true. Finn on Circa Waves page says, will you play So Long live from the Young Chasers album, not this one?
Wow. Probably not. Like I mean, honestly though, like we've got 5 albums now.
That was a
Like
request, wasn't it?
it was a request, but like we've got 5 albums now. Like picking what songs to play is becoming a very difficult endeavor. And yeah, I think that we haven't played so long in a long time. So firstly, I can't remember how to play it. And secondly, I think there's other songs on the first album that we play, but you never know. I think the last time we played it, we played a festival in New York. This might have been on the like second or third album, and like we got booked in to do like a late night after show at some like small bar in Brooklyn. And because I think we ended up going on stage at like 1 o'clock in the morning because there was another gig at the small venue before our gig, and it was like a prog rock gig, and it went on for like hours. So then, like by the time that gig had finished, we put our gear on stage. Like we finally got on stage, and we played this festival at midday. So we were like quite inebriated by the time it got to our set, and like we just sort of like, you know what? Let's people just shout out whatever you want, and someone shouted out so long, and we were brave enough to try and play it. Just
Few
about,
drinks in, and you're like, yeah, we haven't
yeah,
practiced it, but we're in.
we just about got through it, and I think no one noticed. But it was fine. So maybe we'll do that again. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Just come to the gigs and shout it loud enough at the front. Morgan on the Record Club's Facebook page says, are you a record collector? And if so, what is your most treasured vinyl?
Oh, I do have a few vinyl. I don't have as many as I would like because I lived in a place where I couldn't keep them for a long time. So, but that's a good question. I actually bought. I do have a few. Like I love like Slow Dives Souvlaki is like one of my favorite records of all time, and I think yeah I play that probably the most. And then I also have I got on Record Store Day. There's a Built to Spill's first album, which was only ever released on cassette when it first came out, and then for Record Store Day, when we like our first year as a band, we played on like a trailer in a outside a record store in Berlin,
Oh, wicked.
and I sort of went in the shop and they happened to have like the Built to Spill special Record Store Day release where they'd like released their first album, which was over like 4 vinyl. And I was like, oh, the chances that I'm in a shop that has this thing that's quite limited edition was great. So I love that one as well.
Oh, amazing. And that's such a great question to finish on as well. Thank you. That is all we have time for today. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us from Circa Waves, obviously on the Record Club. Obviously, make sure to treat yourself to a physical copy of Never Going Under now that this episode is over. Go pick up one from your local record store, support the cause. I'm also excited to announce that the winner of this week's Bowers and Wilkins Wireless Headphones Prize is Dean on Circa Waves page. So please slide into the Record Club's DMs and we'll get those headphones to you. My name's Jess Iszatt. Thank you so much for joining us and sending in your questions. Our next guest is going to be announced on the Record Club's social media very, very soon. So make sure you're following us. And all previous episodes are available to watch back on our YouTube channel too. Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.